For the last in this series, I'm talking to a man who has achieved a remarkable synthesis between the modern culture of the West and the most ancient culture of the East. He is what, though he wouldn't call himself one, many people would call a guru. He's the author of books like Be Here Now and Grist for the Mill. He's Baba Ram Dass. You don't really look like anybody called Ram Dass. Tell me who you were and how you got where you are.
I was born given the name Richard. My last name was Alpert. And I grew up in the United States, in Boston. Went on to study psychology, took a PhD, taught at Harvard for some years. Got involved in the early 60s in research with psychedelic chemicals, such as LSD. Researched these for 5 or 6 years. Then went to India, where I met a spiritual teacher and realized in India that they had maps for the types of things that we were thinking we were the first explorers on the earth. They already had maps about this terrain of consciousness. And at that time I was given the name Ram Dass, which means servant of God. Ram is one of the names of God, and Das means servant. And I came back from India and became somewhat of a yogic teacher, I guess. And the name Ram Dass was useful to me because every time somebody calls you servant of God, it reminds you about what your business is about, which Richard didn't really do.
No, okay.
So even though all of the trappings of Ram Dass are now gone, the Indian clothes and the beads, and I'm not any more a Hindu than I am a Christian or a Buddhist or a Jew or a Islam.
Would you care to say then, in that context, what you are? You're not those things, or in a sense, perhaps you're all of them?
I think in every one of them is living spirit, and I think I am completely hooked on living spirit and that which truth brings you to. And at the highest or most esoteric essence of each of the religions is that same truth. And I am very much attached to spirit, not particularly to religious forms.
Did you went to India and you met the spiritual teacher whom you spoke. Would you say it was correct to say you had a conversion of any kind?
Well, what seems like critical moments in a life, when you look back later, you see that there was a lot of preparation in your being for that. I'm sure that the first time I understood the scientific method, it was an opening for me. I'm sure the first time I took psychedelics, it was very definitely an opening for me. I'm sure the time I met the teacher, it was a very clear opening for me because I saw in him the possibilities that I had dreamed that human beings were capable of.
How far, then, do you feel that all that was in some way, somewhere, preordained for you, that there's a path that your feet have been set upon?
Well, I don't know whether the word preordained is exactly the right word. It seems to me that the entire universe of forms is lawful in its unfolding, and that it is not by chance that each event occurs. I don't know that it is determined at some distant past moment. It merely is a set of lawful interactions, and if you could stand back far enough, you could see and predict the way it would work in time and space. So I have adopted the role, similar to the Tibetan Milarepa, of sort of listening to the universe to hear the part I play, rather than thinking that I am so much of a choosing instrument.
Are we all on that path?
Yes. Yes, this is the evolution. I mean, the ultimate understanding that I have now is that we have taken a human birth in order to have a series of experiences which are vehicles for our awakening out of the illusion that we are only separate, exclusively separate. Right?
Separate from what?
Separate from the totality of form, or what might be called God, or the formless that lies behind form. The One, it could be called the One. And it seems to me that the journey of awakening leads one to go from thinking that the reality that you grew up with, where your parents said, settle down to reality, this is real, gives way to understanding that that's only relatively real, that there are many types of realities, not only cross-cultural, but planes of awareness as well. And that you go from the identity with your own separateness, which is true on one plane, like at this plane, you're Bernard and I'm Ramdas. Then we go up another one in which we can look and we can see, at one level we can see your body and my body. That's one plane of reality. We could flip our channels, see another plane where we see your personality and mine. Now we're in the psychological domain. We could flip another channel in which we could determine that your astral identity, you could be an Aries or I'm an Aries, you might be Leo, Sagittarius or whatever, another matrix of individual difference. We flip the channel once more, and when I look into your eyes, I see another human being just like me, but in a different package, all right? And then all the individual differences become packaging. These are planes of consciousness. Mm-hmm. If I flip it once more and look into your eyes, it is myself looking at myself looking at myself. There's only one of us in drag, making believe we are the many, if you will, all right? And the complete cycle is going from the many into the one and then coming back into the many to delight in the forms of individual difference, not to reject the physical plane by any means. But that's the cycle of awakening, as far as I understand.
Well, what happens when we get to the channel, to use your metaphor, which, to vary it, hits the jackpot? And what comes up on the machine? What are we looking for? What's the ultimate end? What's at the end of the rainbow?
Well, you see, at that point, you have transcended time and space, so there is no beginning and there is no end, so the entire image is really a faulty one. You realize at that moment, all right? So that's part of it. You have transcended time and space. You have transcended any attachment to a separate identity, even though you still enjoy the separateness as you will, all right? You have become experience. You've transcended dualism, the separation between subject and object, so that at that moment you are the river or you are the tree. You are one with the universe, and it is beyond even the experience of cosmic consciousness, which is a lower trance state, actually. You've actually transcended that one. And at that point there is no self-consciousness. You are merely part of the Tao, of the flow of things in the universe.
But if we are part of the universe, all of us, all the time, how come we have to become that thing? I mean, what's happened? You talked about us being separate from it. Why should we be separate from it?
Well, this is the question of how did it all begin?
Right.
Why is there form? Why, about the apple, original sin, which metaphor do you want to use?
They all mean the same
was it
thing.
merely the one of us creating the many in order to come to know itself, because there was no way a one could experience itself? So it plays with dualism, because as you awaken out of dualism, you realize that the entire thing was like a dream or a dance or an illusion. Not meaning, it's not pejorative to say that. It merely means that it didn't have the solidity you thought it did. Mm-hmm. So in one answer, Buddha's answer is, it's none of your business, meaning that the rational mind can never comprehend the system that created it. In other words, a system can't understand a system meta to it, which is merely a logical problem.
Well, the way you put it, it sounds as though your one, your totality, your God, and these are only labels, we're agreed, I'm sure, has, so to speak, set us a task. Is that what you believe?
Well, first of all, it's not anything separate from us. So we have set us a task, and we could call it a game of hide and seek. We could call it, but you see the predicament. If you look at the wheel of births and deaths, in which you go from the one into the many, and then awaken back into the one, and then stand back from that wheel outside of time and space, you see that there is nothing happening. There is no beginning and there's no end. It's merely, if you look at a clock, that at some point you think you are at 5:25. You think that's who you are. But actually, if you stood back, you would see that you are the Buddha. You are the first cell separating, and you are also the holy man at the last moment of enlightenment. They're all right there. All the incarnations are always present every moment.
But then are we just going round and round and round?
Yes. Nothing's happening at all, actually.
Well, that sounds a trifle pointless. But you don't clearly, look at you, you don't think that's pointless.
Well, the experience of going round has the point in it. The totality just is. God just is. God isn't going anywhere. It always was, is, and will be. And there is, in a way, it is only when you understand that it's pointless that it gets interesting. Okay? We are always clinging to what's the meaning of this?
Yes.
How important is this?
Yes.
But maybe it isn't that important. Maybe it has the exquisite beauty of being, as Hermann Hesse says in Journey to the East, Leo says, it's a beautiful dance, it's a beautiful game, an exquisite game, a play. In India, it's called Leela, the play, the dance.
But how can human beings abandon that concept of meaning? I mean, that is surely the whole structure of everything we stand on. The floor will fall in if we abandon that, won't it?
But it's after the floor falls in, and after you have transcended, thinking of yourself as somebody going somewhere. I mean, if I were to define what I am, I'd say I'm in training, in nobody training. I'm in training to become nobody special, which is, it's understood in the Zen image of nobody special. And then out of that, you come back into the play. You do it as Don Juan says in the Castaneda's books. You live and you huff and puff as if it had tremendous meaning. You appear as if it does, but yet it doesn't.
Aren't you reducing us to meaninglessness in the sense that, of course, we all think we're the center of the universe, if you like, and you are telling us we're not. That I understand that. But aren't you going further than that and dissolving the whole point of us at all? I mean, this thing, you don't believe all this is an accident, I take it.
No, I think that the error is, it's the oversimplification is taking one plane of reality and investing it with some higher value than another. On one plane of reality, it is absolutely perfect law unfolding. No other than merely the unfolding of law. No more meaning than that. Merely a set of events evolving one from the other. On another level, on this level, there is choice, there is motive, there is intent, there is goal, there is purpose. And we play on this level with the purpose, and most of us take it very seriously. And part of awakening is that you start to do it from a different level. You do it out of a delight and a playfulness, even though it's all heavy and serious. You know, there's a different quality of the way you live life.
Well, now, the question that comes up at this moment, I can't resist it, to put it in an obvious modern metaphor, can you sell soap with it? I mean, what do you do? You live in the real world. Never mind about how many other worlds there are and the planes of illusion. I understand that. But we live in this world. We cross the street looking right and left. We go buy food in the grocery store.
Bernard, the question is how we live in the world, not whether we live in the world because we have taken incarnation here, because that's who you and I happen to be on this level of our evolution, that we end up on this plane together at this moment, knowing each other, at least on this plane. Right. But as Christ points out, one lives in the world but not of the world. And you slowly realize that that this is a form that's manifesting, and you dance with it. You wear it like your clothing. You honor it, you take care of it, you keep it clean and neat, and you find out how it harmoniously expresses itself.
But we have, or what do we have? You tell me. Responsibilities to one another, very important ones too. Do we not have our fellow men, our fellow creatures?
Absolutely. And as you listen to hear why you have been incarnated and what function you have within the incarnation, see, this Bernard has a function. You as a cosmic, as God, is at play, as at rest, eternally. There's a part of you that is at rest, and then there is this form that has purpose and function. And you are constantly listening to hear what your function is. And the quieter you become, the more you hear your function is that of service, of relieving the suffering that exists, because you experience at one level of consciousness your identity with all other beings. See, behind, as we went through the changing of the channels, there is a place where you and I are one. And if you're suffering, I'm suffering, you see, ultimately. And there's where social responsibility comes in, finally.
But I want to come back to that. But something you said there is, I think, particularly important, because you talked about the plane I'm on, the plane we're on, and that part of us that is at rest. Now,
Yes.
there seems to be a gulf. How do we bring them together? How do we get into that area so it's all at rest?
Well, we do that through the techniques which are called the techniques of awakening, meditation, yogic techniques, whatever, study, devotion. They are techniques of extricating ourselves from the identifications, the attachments that keep us feeling limited or keep us being who we think we are. Because we aren't who we think we are. That's really the basic teaching of it all. You aren't who you thought you were. All right? You're just much more than that. And as you extricate yourself from these attachments, it's as if you are going into the space or the ground that lies behind the figures, which are thoughts, the thoughts being the definition of who I am and how the universe is, ego structure, models. You see models as merely models, and you start to rest in your awareness that lies behind the models. It's like you are looking at me now, and if I said, who are you? You could say, I'm a looker, right? Or you could say, I am, and there is looking, right? Like, for example, I am depressed versus there's depression. Those are different levels of identification. Mm-hmm. One, I'm identifying with the depression. I'm depressed. The other is I'm aware that there is depression, and I am in a state of depression. But there is an awareness that is quite independent of that. In that awareness, that spaciousness around the forms is the equanimity.
Okay, well now let's go back in another way, by another path to what we were talking about earlier. You see, you said this depression. You talk about there's the I am depressed, and there is depression and I am. Well, now a hell of a lot of people are depressed and hungry and suffering and ill and dying and in prison unjustly and being beaten on the head by wicked people and so on, all around us, all over the world. What do we do about them? Well, let me put it this way: what do you do about them?
Well, what I do about them is I do everything I can to relieve their suffering. I have projects working in prisons. I work with dying people. I work with the blind. I protest against nuclear energy. I do a lot of things that are political active things. I get involved in politics.
Well, let's. I mean, the two things there that struck me. Well, prisons. Now, you work in prison. How? Yes. What do you do in a prison?
Well, roughly what we are saying is if you have to serve time, use your time to get free of time. Instead of spending all your time in prison being angry of why you got there, if you take a prison, it gives you a cell, food, clothing, and tells you what to do all day. Take a monastery. It's interesting. They give you a cell, clothing, food, and tell you what to do all day. You say, yes, but you were stuck in one and you chose to go in. Right. All right, do you want to spend all the time in prison being preoccupied with how you got there? Mm-hmm. Or do you want to use the time? And if you can imagine a cell block that has 15 inmates and 3 guards, and the inmates all think they're in a monastery, the only people left in prison are the guards. I mean, if you could see it that way.
Yes, but if you could see it that way, do you make prisoners see it that way?
What we do is we say to prisoners, there is the possibility you could see it that way. If you would like to see it that way and would like some help in seeing it that way, let us help you. We'll send you material. We'll do everything we can. We'll create a pen pal. We'll do everything we can to give you an environment. We'll give you a free book called Inside Out, which will be telling you about people like Gandhi and Aurobindo and lots of people who serve time in jail and use their time in order to become more conscious. I've met people who've been in solitary confinement, and I look into their eyes and I see an eternality, and I say to them, how'd you do that? I mean, these are people that were on death row. And I say, how are you getting so clear? And they say, well, solitary, man, I mean, and that's what, in India, you go and you seek solitude in order to do inner work. And in prisons, you say, if you're not good, we'll put you in solitude, you see. And you can flip the whole thing around. So the state is actually supporting your becoming a much deeper, more profound, more equanimous person that could actually contribute to the society by bringing peace and love and presence rather than anger and feelings of revenge and so on.
Wherein then does this differ from what we think of as prison visiting? There are plenty of people who work in prisons, cheering prisoners up, if you like, trying to make them understand, trying to reform them, if you like, so they will not go back to crime when they're released, etc.
I don't think you do anything to another human being. I think what you do, Gandhi had a very good image. He was traveling on a train, and a reporter rushed up and said, Mahatmaji, give me a message to take back to my people. And he scribbled on a piece of paper something and handed it out, and it said, my life is my message. And I think that what you realize is that you work on yourself and you become an environment which allows another person to grow if they are in the point of evolution where they wish to grow. And if they aren't, you leave them alone. You stop coming on to people. I'm not a proselytizer. I got nothing to sell. There's nothing to join. That's not the part of it. For a prisoner, it's merely allowing them to conceive of the possibility that they could use it differently. All right? That's very different than cheering them up.
Right.
Pleasure and happiness is not the business I'm in. I'm in the business of freedom. It's very different. I'm in the business that Christ was in and that Buddha was in and all of these beings like Muhammad and so on.
Well, now you also I see that, how that interacts with a prisoner in his trap, in his cell. You also mentioned working with the dying. Yes. Well, you haven't much time there, have you? I mean, a man's dying, a woman's dying, they're dying. And the point about the prisoner in 10 years solitary, he's got time to work through all this. A dying person hasn't, or have they? Well,
you've got to, first of all, have the image in the dying project of where you're going with it. And to give you a feeling for it, let me just tell you this brief story. There was a time when one country was overrunning another, which was Buddhist. And they were being very fierce with the Buddhist monks, disemboweling them and killing them. And there was a particularly fierce commander of the invading army. And when he would come into a town, the monks would all flee into the mountains. And he came into this town, and he asked his adjutant for a report, and the report was, all the monks have fled into the mountain but one. And he got furious about this one monk who defied him. And he walked into the monastery and he pushed open the doors, and there was the monk standing right in the middle of the courtyard. And he walked up to him and he said, "Don't you know who I am? I could take my sword and run it through your belly without blinking an eye." And the monk said, "And don't you know who I am? I could have your sword run through my belly without blinking an eye." And at that point, supposedly the commander bowed and left, right? Because that's an Eastern country. Yes. Now, once you have started to awaken and extricate yourself from identification, one of the first things you break the identification with is your own body. And you see, in India, they call it dropping the body in dying. Ramana Maharshi, a great Indian saint, was dying. And his people said, "Don't leave us, heal yourself." He said, "No, this body's all used up." And they said, don't go. And he looked perplexed and he said, "Where could I go? I mean, I'm only dropping my body. It's like I'm only selling my Ford. I'm not going anywhere." See, once that identity is broken. So what I'm looking for is opportunities in life for awakening. For those who wish to awaken, to show them that these are opportunities and help them use them, and help me use them in the same token. So prison is an opportunity for awakening. Relationships are an opportunity. Dying is a beauty, because at the point of dying, most of the power trips you've had going start to fall apart. You get to the point you can't even toilet yourself. You can't do anything. You've got to keep letting go and letting go. And every time you let go of your model of who you were and how the world is, you are open. There's a little teeny space in the veil that you could use as a vehicle for awakening. So what we do is we invite those that wish to use their dying as a vehicle for awakening to make contact with us. And then we put them together with people who are working on their awakening and would like to be in the presence of dying people as a vehicle. There are no professional dyers, after all, right? And that combination helps each other keep from getting caught in the drama. Like often I'll walk into a room with somebody and they'll be surrounded by the family and it's all very heavy drama. And I'll say, "Oh, excuse me, I see you're all, I'm sorry, I'll come back later because I see you're busy dying." Because it's just another storyline. I mean, this sounds callous and cold, but it isn't. It comes, I appreciate the suffering and the pain and the loss and the grief and so on.
But I see the storyline argument in all sorts of fields, but dying can't be a story. Dying's not an illusion.
Dying is a hype.
You die.
Bernard, dying is a hype. You don't die. Just who you think you are dies.
The body dies.
And the minute you have died, you say, oh, God, is that what happened? Wow. And all the time. You know how you dream at night?
Right.
And then sometimes you wake up and you say, oh, that was just a dream. And then you find out you're still in a dream. You're in another dream. Right? Well, this one is just another one. And when you wake up, this is like a bigger dream, all right?
You know,
didn't the people in your dreams seem real?
Right.
Didn't they seem like you were interviewing people for BBC?
Right.
Well, it's just another one.
Yes, but a lot of people now want this question answered, and I must say so do I, which is, how do you know? You see, you talk that the cycle, the incarnations, the body dies, but something else does not die. We go on. When we have died, we think that's what it was, and go back again, or round another trip. Well, I'm not saying what is your evidence of this. Prove it. No, it's not like that. But it is, what is it that gives you this conviction? I think you're shining with conviction.
Yeah.
What is it?
I may well be totally psychotic, Bernard. I mean, I don't know whether... I'm at the point, this is, me as a social scientist is appalled by who I would lock me up. I mean, who I was 50 years ago would lock me up now. Because I don't even say I hypothesize or I theorize. I say this is just the way it is.
Right.
And as far as I can see, there are three ways you know these kinds of things. One is by your direct experience. And through the drug experiences, through the meditation experiences, through being around my guru and so on, being in India a lot of things have happened that have reinforced these kinds of belief systems. The second way is that you know somebody who knows, and they tell you how it is, and you trust them. And that's my relation to my teacher in India, my guru, who died in 73, but didn't go anywhere. I mean, he's more part of my reality now than practically anything else. That's how mashugana I am now. The third one is that you extrapolate from what you know through your studies, all right? Now, some way, in some combination of all those three things, is the way in which it all becomes real in that way, or relatively real. I mean, everything I'm saying is a lie, because words are birds. They're just flying through the space, and the truth has no form. So I know I'm merely playing with words, and everything is just metaphor and image. We're merely the finger pointing at the moon. We're not the moon. You understand? And I'm in this funny business of talking about the unspeakable, you know.
You had a teacher, a guru. Do we all need a teacher? Do we all need a guru?
Well, everybody has as much guidance as they need. It's all happening perfectly. I mean, that's just what's so mind-blowing. The thing is just unfolding for each person so perfectly. And everybody doesn't need an external person that comes along and says, I am a guru. I mean, which I am not, no matter how you introduce me, all right? I'm not enlightened. I'm, just working just like everybody else. I don't think that everybody needs an external guru. A lot of people have internal gurus. There's a Ramana Maharshi said, God, guru, and self are one, right? And so you can go into your own heart and learn to listen deeper and deeper and deeper. We in the West call it the intuitive mind, as opposed to the rational mind. And we've always kind of put it down or said, well, it's kind of soft and mushy. But it turns out to be a higher way of knowing. Like Einstein said, I didn't arrive at my understanding of the basic laws through my rational mind. And if you go into people like Mozart or any numbers of musicians, you will find people go beyond form into the place where music is, where poetry is, where wisdom is, and then come back and bring it back into knowledge or form. All right?
Well, all I can say is if you don't think you're an enlightened man or a teacher, you could have fooled me. Thank you very much, Ramdas.
Thank you.